So that is not how to drain your oil. Absolute f***ing disaster. So welcome back to the channel. This is episode 2 of my Volkswagen T5 van. So in the previous episode, picking up the van, did a good old wash. This thing has been sat for a couple of years and done very little mileage, so it is now looking a lot more glossy blue. I then made a start on a few little bits that needed doing and a few extra bits that I had bought, but we still have a pretty long way to go. So in this video, the main thing is going to be the big old service. Decent bit of progression on the board. The wash is done, the mirrors are done, the wiper blades are done, the indicators are done, as you can see. The fans are done as well with that coolant temperature sensor. So the big part of this service will be the cam belt and water pump kit. I don't actually have any records of when it was last replaced, so that is a big red flag. And the water pump does have the metal impeller, so I believe they were plastic back in the day and they were prone to fail. So we've got an updated part which will help future-proof this, along with a new idler, a new tensioner, and of course the belt and the nuts to go onto those two. And I've also got a little timing kit, so this should lock out the crank in the right place and the camshaft, and I think that helps with doing the tensioner as well. So we've got the kit, so this should hopefully go to plan. Also in my box of goodies, we have a diesel fuel filter to do, so that's pretty easy by the looks of it. A couple of connectors up in the top of the engine bay, doesn't look too hard of a job. We also have a air filter and a pollen filter to do. We've got a oil and filter as well, and a new sump plug and washer, and coming at a later date will be an auxiliary belt as well. I am so happy with how this paint has turned out. You can see the light beading off it now, and it is super smooth. So that clay bar and an aggressive cut on there with a little spray wax on top is beautiful. So this will be my first cam belt and water pump on a van, so let's give it a go. I've had a look on YouTube already. It doesn't look like it should be too hard, but I suppose with the age of it and the mileage, there may be rusty bolts, seized bolts and all sorts. And we may have an appearance from the old man who's going to come and give me a hand, bless him. So yeah, first time on YouTube. What a time. So looking down on the engine, left-hand side, the whole airbox is going to come out. Then we're going to get rid of that intercooler piping, that silver pipe down here. Then this reservoir is going to come off, and I think you can strap it and secure it out of the way under here. There is an engine mount down here, this left one, so that's going to have to come off. And I think also the auxiliary tensioner's got to come off, and the belt. And then these timing covers can come off as well, I believe. But before we do that, we need to get this thing up in the air and get the right wheel off and the arch liner to look underneath at the crank. And could I find that wheel nut for a good 15 minutes? No, I could not. Luckily, it was in the little cup holder tray in the center console. Please do not be too tight. Oh, you... There's one. There's two. Three. 4. Ah, lovely. We're on to a winner. I think I need to go up a bit. Oh, she's heavy. Working from the top then, panel filter, out it comes. Once the airbox assembly is off and out the way, it's then a case of just pulling up the little clips on the intercooler pipe in and undoing a bolt. The hardest bit was actually wiggling the pipe away from the turbo side, but it finally came out. It definitely needed a good cleanup, but I'll get that sorted. And then it was on to my dad removing the timing covers for me nicely there. He was then down at the bottom undoing those 6mm Allen key bolts around the crank plate. Airbox is off, tensioner for the auxiliary belt is pulled, so the belt is off. We're just struggling with the 6mm Allen key bolts for the outer pulley. They are tight with thread lock. Belt's looking pretty new actually, but like I say, I don't have any service history in terms of belt, so we're doing it anyway. So that is the crank locked into its timing positions, and then the camshaft with the pin through at around about the 9 o'clock position. So that is the old belt finally off. The little idler, not too bad. The bearing's a little bit noisy, but we got a new one anyway. And the tensioner itself. Like I said, I don't know when this belt was done, but it's not in too bad a condition, but at least we know where we're at now. Time to get the water pump off. Fuck me, they look dodgy. What the hell are they?
What? 6mm Allen key, isn't it?
Like a 5mm Allen key or a 10mm outer maybe? Didn't even record that. It's got the old plastic impeller still. So it's got a genuine VW Audi pump on it, and there's no way this is the original at 21 years old because it's in very good condition. There was not much corrosion on it. So it's probably had one at some point in its life. It just wasn't documented in the service book. As you can see here, it's got the plastic impeller and they have now been changed to a metal one. So it's nice to know we're putting in a good new one into it with fresh fluids. This thing is going to be wicked. So that is the belt on. Top tip, as it is bloody tight. Leave the idler off, that lower one. Feed it on over the top of the camshaft one. Then push on the tensioner fully because we had it on the shaft but not all the way engaged with the nut off. Once that's in place, you can then just pop the idler on. Just got to tighten these up now and then set the tension on the tensioner and we're good to start it briefly. Ready?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So started up then, hasn't gone bang, we're all good timing wise, so it's now just putting it all back together. So I am back. I left here last night after doing that cam belt and water pump kit. The coolant level looks pretty good, although I haven't gone for a road test and run it up just yet. That's because I'm going to start some other service work, get it all done now, and then that way I can go out and test drive it, get it nice and warm, check the oil level again once I've changed it, and obviously check and adjust the coolant. Definitely need a little tidy up first though, because we have stuff everywhere. So the panel air filter in the housing there, I didn't film. It was just a case of refitting that when I did the cam belt. It's just literally a panel filter fitting in. There's one clip down here to undo, same on the back. Connector off of the mass airflow sensor, that clip off of the hose, and it's just secured in the side with two little hooks, and then that top half comes away and then you can just replace the filter. So there's the old one there. It wasn't too bad to be fair, but yeah, new one is in. So for the next bit, I'm going to try doing a bit of head cam point of view basically with the DJI action. So let's start doing the oil and filter change next. Hopefully this camera angle is going to work out. If not, this footage is going to be scrap. But before I even start, I just make sure the cap comes off, which it does, the filler. The oil filter housing is down there, but we're going to start with getting underneath, cracking off the sump plug bung, wherever it may be. That is right here. And I believe it's a 19. Yes, it is. Thank goodness. The threads are all right. And no one's done that up too tight. So I'd normally wear normal nitrile gloves, but I only have a medium and it is bloody hot. So my hands are proper sweaty and inflamed. So yeah, I definitely need to get some larges for this hotter weather now because they're just too damn tight. So we're going to try and not make a mess, he says. Right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, all over the torch as well. Uh-oh, we got an explosion. Come on. And that's not how you do it. Making a mess everywhere. No.
Wow, you drizzled sparingly with a touch of oil, but look at it. I've got little swimming pools, little miniature bathtubs full of oil floating on the side. It's gross.
Well, that was a colossal mess up on my behalf. I unscrewed the bleed valve enough, so I thought that would allow for like air circulation to allow it to drain. I've looked back at the video. I unscrewed the main drain plug slightly. I didn't take it out, did I? Absolute muppet. So top tip, make sure your drain tray is ready to go. There's me concentrating on not getting a little bit of oil on my fingers because I haven't got the right gloves. Absolute special. Let's continue. That's draining there now, so let's get on with the oil filter. So new oil filter, with the O-ring on the bottom and the top one. Holy moly, that's a dry seal on that. 36mm socket on this one, and that should just be the plastic cap off. Make sure you get the O-rings as well. So just make sure you check that you've got that little O-ring at the bottom. You don't want that stuck in. And there's the O-ring there on the outer casing. So the oil filter is back in the housing, torqued up all right. Now it's time to fill with oil. So I'm going to be using the Miller's oils today. I've used them on my first ever Copart repair, which was my Audi S4. Check that out in the link above if you want to. But yeah, like I say, trusted products. They do very good high quality performance grade oils as well. But this stuff came recommended and I trust them. So let's get this stuff in the van. So next up on the service list is doing the diesel fuel filter, which is this canister. So let's get this coolant reservoir out the way so we can have a proper look at what we're dealing with. This should effectively be a bolt off, unclip, and then just replace with a new one. I do believe some people pre-fill the new filter, so there's not an issue with like an airlock in the fuel line. I think I'm just going to try it first, just turning the ignition on and off a couple of times so it primes and hopefully it will start up okay. This one looks relatively old. I mean, the coating on the outside, it's bare, so it probably does corrode a little bit. I can see it says Touareg on it, so this must be a Volkswagen part that is used on multiple vehicles. But like I say, we've got a nice new Bosch one, so let's start getting this one off. So because we're dealing with diesel, it's nasty stuff, so definitely wear gloves and maybe eye protection as well, because I'm assuming we might get a little bit of spray off one of these or all of these connectors. I don't actually have any nitrile gloves anymore because I ran out with the oil situation yesterday, so we found some gloves. They are pretty thick, so they're not the best, but let's give it a go. I kind of feel like I've got crab hands. There's letters on here, so we got an RF, a VF, RT and VM. I don't think these will move out the way, so I'm not going to mark them. I'm happy that we're probably going to get these returned without mixing them up. I'm going to release these first, then I'm going to try releasing this clamp, and I'm hoping it might just slide out. If not, there are some bolts on the side here, but let's give this a go first. Mind your eyes, mind your mouth. First one is up. Second one up. Gently does it. These are only plastic, so you don't want to be bending them at angles because they're likely to crack, especially considering they've been here for many years now and it gets hot underneath here, so plastic doesn't tend to do very well with heat. So this is definitely the tightest one. So there goes that one. Let's see, so that should hopefully clip off of there. Is that going to come straight out? Yes, easy as that. Now there's definitely quite a bit of diesel in here. For the hell of it, let's try, see if any comes out. Okay, so we've got some coming out of VM and RF. So if I point VM with VM, there's a little bit in here, so I guess that will help. I mean, like I say, once I turn the ignition on and off a couple of times, I'm hoping that will prime it and fill it anyway. That is all of the connectors on, secured. The clip is on, secured around the tang, so it's not going to go anywhere. Now it's time to just crank over a couple of times and let's see if it will start. Before you do that, make sure you put your reservoir back on. So So the last part of the big service is this filter here, which is a pollen filter, cabin filter, that lives up underneath the passenger side dashboard. They should be pretty accessible. So let's have a little look. So there should be a cover, and then, okay, so my cover is missing. So there should be a little cover fascia plate on there. So that's gone, which is one less job. And there are 2 screws just there on that elongated flat part, and it should be behind there. So here's the filter, and it looks pretty damn old. Oh my God, what the hell? So I don't think this has been replaced in a very long time, considering the amount of stuff coming out of it. Oh my word. Definitely not. So look at the state of my carpet, and look at all of the debris inside that filter. Let's see how much comes out of this. Wow. This thing, I'm guessing, hasn't been changed in years. I've never seen a filter that bad. Old versus the new one. Wow, what a difference. Let's get the fresh one in, and then we need to get the hoover in that footwell.
So the micro V-bout finally turned up. So it's quite a simple job. I ended up just pulling down on the little lug on the tensioner, and then it was locking it in with the little Allen key type thing from my little tool, which held it with the tension off. Then it was a case of just slipping the old belt off and then refitting the new one. Then up at the top, just taking a bit of load off, pulling the pin back out, and then just making sure the belt was all seated around all of the pulleys properly. Easy peasy job.
That is the end of our big service on the Volkswagen T5 van. Not too bad in the end. Obviously it is time consuming and it is a little bit daunting doing the cam out and water pump. However, if you've got a bit of mechanical skill or want to just give it a go, there are plenty of forum bits now because the van has been around for a very long time, and also there are a couple of videos on YouTube which would definitely help. This has now future-proofed the van for quite a few years. With all those new parts on it, it is ready to enjoy, hopefully, trouble-free miles. So this is another thing that wasn't on my original list, but now I've had a bit of time with the van, exterior-wise, the paint is coming away on these door handles, and there's a little bit of corrosion as well. So I'm going to continue along with the gloss black against the blue, and we're going to put some covers on. Just a simple kit, 3 of them, so it'll do the back door as well, and then you've got obviously the surrounds to go around the lock. So let's get these bad boys on. So the covers just have some like 3M adhesive on them. I will secure them with tape overnight just to make sure they bond properly. But before I do that, I am going to clean them off and degrease them with some isopropyl alcohol so they have the best chance of staying on and sticking. That'll do, looks a lot better. I mean, it's just simply an outer cover. You can still see the blue when you go on the inside like that, but from pretty much side on and around, looks like a nice gloss black trim handle. So that'll do perfectly. So the side on of the van now, with a bit more black on the side, is looking pretty good. However, I do have one more addition to fit to this side, and that is a pair of wind deflectors. So the deflectors are like a smoked color, and they're just going to fit along the front windows along there. So that is the wind deflectors on. Literally a 5-minute job, but it makes it look much cooler, and it's practical as well with that window down to let a bit of air in and not have it buffeting. For under £20, that is a bargain. So at the back of the van, I am going to do a little change again, and that is going to be the number plate lights. I'm just going to go from the traditional bulb to a whiter one. So let's get those done. So this is the unit I'm fitting, so a new whole assembly. I'm going to do a gamble with this because LEDs only work one way around. Pop that in. Pop that in there like that. So that is another job done. Nice and easy. Unscrew, screw in the new ones. That just makes the back look a little bit more modern, tying in with the LED lights here. So let's get the van outside in the sunshine and have a proper look at it. As I've not seen it yet with the deflectors and the new gloss black bits, let's take a look. I'm now going to take the van out for a quick drive, 10 miles, get it nice and warm, make sure everything is good, fluid levels, coolant and all are bang on, and then we'll go from there.
If you watch the original video, I had damage to the left-hand centre arch trim. Now I couldn't source just an individual bit, so I did have to bite the bullet and buy a full kit. Luckily it was just bonded on with just self-adhesive tape, so I then gave the body of the van a good old clean degrease before fitting the brand new one. Simple little job, but now that whole side is looking mint.
Right, we are off to Wales. Now this is the van's first proper trip out. I've done about 10 miles in it, but this is going to be a good 120 mile round trip, a proper test for it. So let's hope nothing breaks. And yeah, hopefully we will come back with some new additions for the van. Stay tuned. So a week has passed and I've been using this daily, along with obviously collecting the cabinet that you've just seen a sneak peek of. And I've been to a couple of motorbike events as well. So 400 miles have been completed, or just over actually. No major issues, but I have noticed a couple of little things now. I've been using it daily and getting to grips with this van and trying out some of the functions that will need to be sorted. So the wiper jets, they are terrible. It's literally splashing like a little fountain out. I'm then relying on 60 mile an hour to drag the water up with the wipers to clean the top end of the screen. Now I have started topping up the screen wash and it was dripping out the bottom. So when the bumper is off to do the day running lights, I'll have a good look then at the washer bottle, because I think it's got a crack in it. I can see it is holding a certain amount of fluid, so the crack must be fairly high up in the bottle assembly. So there possibly is also an issue with possible contamination within the screen wash bottle. I can hear the pump going when I activate it. And obviously, like I say, I've got a bit of water coming out the top. So there may well be an issue with a blockage at the pump itself in the gauze material. I know these do have issues with the wire going up by the bonnet hinge. That all looks to be secure and dry, so there's no cracks there. And from the inside of the van, after doing a couple of big trips now, the van on the coolant display only gets up to about 80 degrees. Now this should ideally be bang on in the center at 90. So I am gonna buy a thermostat. I just think where this has been sat for so long, maybe it's got stuck slightly or stuck open. So that's the better thing, because it hasn't overheated. The level's absolutely fine. Like I say, it's just not warming up to where it should be. And the weirdest one of all is that every time I take the keys out of the ignition and then restart the van, the time reverts back to 000 and your trip goes back to 00. Now it does have an aftermarket head unit in. I did do a little bit of research and people saying, oh, it's the wiring up of this. However, all fuses are good. That holds its memory absolutely fine. So all like the preset saved channels are still there. So it makes me think it isn't that. So has anyone else experienced this? So like I say now, that is saying 000 there. And like I say now, my trip, well, until I start it, that is empty right now and flashing service, but that'll say 00 as well. Obviously it retains the odometer absolutely fine. But yeah, I don't know whether it's a clock issue, key, maybe there's an issue with that, or there's an issue with the ignition switch. Has anyone else had that? So a couple of issues there, but like I say, it's a 21-year-old van. There's going to be issues, isn't there? And they're only little niggly bits. It's not like it's drastic. So a little bit of progress. The big service is done. Arch trim is now also sorted, replacing that top middle piece of the left-hand side. So now it's time to continue on with the lights. Let's get this bumper off, have a look at those headlights. And at the same time, the day running lights have now arrived. So here is the day running lights from Germany. And I was blessed with having a £57 import tax price to pay for these, which was a little bit annoying. But hey ho, they are here and hopefully they are not damaged. Big box. And these are supposed to be gloss black. So hopefully they are a pretty good finish as well. Because I do not want to be painting these. That's the whole idea of buying this kit. Great one, lads. So it's gloss black, yeah, I'll give them that, but it's an unpainted gloss black, so it's like a faded, pre-prepped panel. So this should be the LEDs. No instructions. That feels like a pretty sturdy unit, which I'm happy with. So yeah, they just feel weighted. They don't feel cheap either. So worth the wait, I'm hoping. So it comes with 2 Scotch locks and a couple of bolts. I'm not the biggest fan of Scotch locks, if I'm honest. They're pretty ghetto old school. It'd be nice to know which wires I'm going to actually attempt to put them to, but the connectors on the end of the lights look pretty good here, and a nice little loom assembly here with a little ballast, so I'm sure we can work it out. So on the little canvas box, we've got a little display here. It might be quite hard to see it from there, but basically we've got 3 wires out the end of it. So we've got a earth point on the little black connector, and we've got a red, which will be our live feed. And then we've got a yellow or white, it's showing on there, and it's saying width lamp. So I'm guessing that may go to the side lights. It's got a nice little inline fuse on it, and the sub-assembly harness looks pretty good as well. So this should go to plan. So the light just drops in that side, harness through there, and then just a bolt there with a washer, top and bottom. So I thought before I go ahead and put the bumper off, I'll just have a look. So I've taken off the left-hand panel. It's just literally held in by securing tangs. Instantly I can see with this part of the LED, the back body being so proud outwards, it is not going to fit. It's fouling on this molded piece here. So if I line that up, you can see there, it's hitting. So that's going to need to be cut out there, a section of it, like a wedge section. So that is my kind of rough template with a pen. It's not too thick a plastic. I'm going to do it whilst it's on the van so I don't have to hold anything. It's already bolted in. But a little hacksaw down there and that should be fine. So let's see if this will fit. Might need to take some more material off, but I'm hoping it should be about right. Bloody hell, it's a tight fit. So at least it's clipped in. It's not perfect at the moment. It's still sitting a little bit tight at the top here. So I think if I do the same to the other side, at least I know they do fit the bumper. And then once the bumper's completely off, from the inside looking, I can see if there's any little bits I just need to take away. Right, so that is both sides in for the test fit. A little bit more to do on the corners as they're not quite sitting in right. So what are we thinking? I'm a little bit torn at the moment, whether to leave them black or when the door gets done, painted, the rust piece, whether or not I get them to colour match these as well. That didn't go quite to plan. So the bumper is 90% off. Left hand side, absolutely fine. The right hand side, it's easier if I show you on the side that has come apart, okay? There's two threaded, sort of like slotted studs that are into the plastic of the side of the bumper. They've got 10mm nuts on. I would imagine they've been over tightened, whizzed up with probably a gun, and it's because it's only plastic in here, basically that's slotted to hold it in place. I think it's all just worn away and it's just spinning the whole bolt assembly in that plastic, because unfortunately plastic can only hold a certain amount of torque, and when you whiz them up they just wear away. So I can get to where I need to. I can get to the washer bottle and I can see already it is very dark and sludgy. And just like last year when I did a BMW 1 Series where the washer bottle was contaminated, it basically just blocks the filter gauze on the pump, and then it just can't allow the flow up that it demands. So 9 times out of 10 it burns the pump out eventually, but it seems to be working at the moment. So this will have to come out. I'll try and swill it out and have a look at the gauzes in there, make sure they're all right, and hopefully that will resolve that issue. There is a little leak, filled it up to the top, and you can see those water droplets down. So I'm guessing there's a crack in the funnel piece that goes up under the engine bay rather than the tank, but I'm going to get this out anyway to give it a good clean out. Let's see where that crack is. We got ourselves a squirter. Whoa. Looking back at that video I've just done, there's not much water pressure coming out of the pump out of that bit there, and obviously that goes straight up into the hose, up through the side and out into your washers. I would expect that to blast a lot more pressure, so that explains why when I activate the washers I'm getting very little out the top. And to get this washer bottle out, I thought, it'd be nice and easy. There's a Torx 30 just there, and I've had a little look round, and some designer back in the day thought it was a good idea, if I can even shine it, to put a Torx 30 bolt down in that crack through there. I'm going to have to try and get a little bit creative there and get a tool in there and try and get that 30 out. Wish me luck on that one. Right, so that is the washer reservoir bottle out and the funnel assembly, and this is also the stuff I'm on about. So that is just grime coming out of the reservoir, and that just blocks up the filters of the pump so quickly. I mean, look at it. And to get that Torx 30 out of there, there's going to be a lot of people in a world of pain, because that is just ridiculous. However, a bit of advice, what I have used is a 1/4 inch ratchet with a tiny little 1/4 inch extension with a very shallow blue point Torx bit, if you can replicate that. So the trick with this thing is it can be a normal ratchet like that, obviously clockwise, anti-clockwise, but then whichever mode you set it in, clockwise or anti-clockwise, you can then twist the ratchet end, the handle, and it is slowly spinning the end. So with the beauty of that is you can locate it into the Torx 30, it's really tight in there and you've got no movement, you can't undo it. But then also it has a 1/4 drive bit on the end. So I just used a 1/4 drive extension to another ratchet, and I've located it, and then I'm just twisting this end. So as I'm twisting that end, it's fixed in that position and it's undoing that Torx 30 beautifully. And I do have a new washer pump to go back into that once I've cleaned that out a little bit more. And I've now got the headlight out on the left hand side, just a couple of bolts on the top, and then it's just a tang on the bottom. It's not actually secured to anything, but that was held in by the front bumper. But now that that front bumper is down, easily removed. And then we have the original like multi-pin connector, and then it goes into a little sub harness, which then has all the different wires on the aftermarket headlight to do the sweeping indicators, the day running lights, dip and high beam. I've just tweaked the dipped beam again, just making sure that was all okay. Obviously I fitted that in the vehicle in episode 1, but just checking all of that, and that's okay. And then I've gone already and fitted one of the high beams, so this is with the new LED. So next up is to get the right hand side one out, where I had an issue with the little clasp. It's a lot easier on the bench to see what you're doing, and also with some long needle nose pliers, it just saves your fingertips. Getting the clips untanged and then getting the bulb out. So let's get this one out and then I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I can see the issue. So basically the left-hand one is marginally further out from that center plastic lug. And that was the one I was able to depress and move out to the left-hand side and unclip. Whereas the right-hand one, by the plastic lobe at the top, it's a lot closer to the lobe and it's further on down. It's a bit skew-iff. And that's the one I couldn't depress and unhook whilst it was in the van. So now it's obviously on the bench. It'll be a lot easier with some pliers just to unhook it. But yeah, little things like that, sometimes an absolute nightmare. Yeah, there was no way I was going to undo that with my fingers. That then, even with those, was quite a bit of force to undo that. So yeah, it's definitely the wise decision getting that out. And I bet now, just like the other one, yeah, so the left-hand side, nice and easy, just like when it was in the van. So yeah, like I say, sometimes just a little thing like that can cause a little bit of headache. But we're here. So there's the original high beam, and then we're going to replace it with this bad boy. So nice LED unit, once again by Novsite, and it's got a cooling fan on the back. But already these look a really nice quality product. So there's two little nipple pins to locate into the headlight. So it's going to kind of sit at that angle. And then as like the dip beam, you then just slide over the pin like that. It needs to go all the way down to the O-ring, and that secures it in place. Right, so purely for test purposes, I've got the day running lights just out on the floor, as you can see, with a sub harness connected. The earth at this moment in time, I've just put onto the stub on the earth terminal on the battery until I find a nice clean bolt. Struggling at the moment. I finally found with a multimeter that this green wire here is the side lights voltage supply. So obviously once the side lights are activated, you get 12 volts coming in here. So I put the red to there. I'm guessing it's going to have to go off the dip beam. And the why I say that is they're meant to power up on the side lights. And then when you switch to dip beam, they reduce their brightness because it's a legal thing. So they're not as bright once you've got your dip beams on, basically. I believe it's an MOT requirement as well. Side lights on, we should have power. Yes, there we go. At last. So that should be full brightness. And then if I now turn on the ignition to allow for the dip beam on. So dip beam on in there. Are they any brighter or less bright, sorry? Let's have a little fiddle. Okay, I don't think the wire is in. Moment of truth. Yes. There we go. So, oh, I'm tripping it out here. I don't want to pop anything. So that is full brightness there, if you can pick that up. And then when I attach that wire, that is, it dimmed. Right, so a little update. The Osmo ran out of battery and then so did my phone. So the washer bottle is in, the pump is working, and the jets are working lovely. So that is spot on. I have the headlight in on the right hand side. I also had it in on the left, and they were all working fine. Although on reflection last night, I did think I had wired them to the side lights. So the whole point of a day running light is that they're on via the ignition feed. So you don't have to have any of this headlight on, and they just run when the engine's running from that feed, and then they turn off with the ignition automatically. So I have since removed the supply from the side light, and then I've been hunting down the switch feed for the ignition. I have found it in the fuse box just behind the headlight. So what I'm actually going to do is just connect a piggyback inline fuse in the 5 amp one that it needs to go to. So it will connect on this end, the supply, and then it will just fit into the fuse box. So pretty much a factory fit. After doing some research online last night, not finding the exact day running lights, but there are tons out there that are pretty much all the same, apart from the wiring boxes. But I found instructions to cut out this section here, which would make sense because it is just very tight up against that area. So I am going to go ahead and cut out this section of the bumper as well now. So before the bumper goes back on for good, I did notice the other day that the fog lights weren't working. Had a look down here and there's quite a bit of pool of water in there. So I thought, oh, there we go. It's blown the bulb, shorted, it's popped the fuse. However, now the bumper's been off slightly, I can look up inside here there's actually no wiring for it. So the explanation for that, I'm guessing, is the original bumper, being a T5, it didn't come with fog lights. Now it's had a facelift. That van would have been spec'd to have the fog lights. So the bulb's in there, everything's there, but there's no one home in terms of connectivity wise. So I'm going to drain that anyway, look and see if there's a crack. I'll just glue, repair it, whatever. But yeah, get that sorted now because it looks like there's a little aquarium in there at the moment. So that is what we're dealing with. Lovely. Both factory breathers are on there. Doesn't seem to be any cracks. So unless I jet washed it a little bit too hard down on the engine bay and it's run down the back of it and through the breathers, that possibly is the only explanation to that. But yeah, I won't be in there washing as hard anymore. So that should be cleared. Perfect timing. I now have the little fuse piggyback. So got it from Halfords. Literally like £3. So the red wire from my day running lights, which is the switched ignition feed, I'll just crimp into there and then take the 5 amp from the fuse box out, fit this connector into its place and then refit the 5 amp into there. Hopefully that picks out all right with the torch and on the camera, but just in here. So all I'm going to do is get my red feed wire, get the end of this, feed in my red wire and basically just crimp it in place. And then I've put a 5 amp in there already. I don't know if I need to do both of them because it's whatever that circuit is going to be done by the 5 amp and then I've added a line, so I'm guessing I will piggyback both and do 2 5 amps. So the one I'm going to use is just down in here. You can grab it. So I'm now just popping that into there like that. I will just double check that this all works all right, and if it does, I'm thinking I will drill a hole in the side of the fuse box carrier, so then it will sit around about here, and then that way the lid can go back on it perfectly and no water or dirt ingress can get inside it. Yes! So that is just the ignition on. Obviously the van not started, so they are full brightness at that point, and then when I switch to headlight, they should dim. Absolutely mega. That definitely took a little longer than it should have. To start with, it doesn't help not having some instructions, having to go a bit old school there. Like I say, originally sourced it doing it to the side lights, but doing it properly with a switched ignition feed and done with a proper nice fuse setup. I think longevity wise, that is the proper way to do it. Absolutely buzzing with that. Let's get them fitted properly into the bumper now that I've cut it all out. Make sure that fits good. So that is the fuse box cover back on with the hole in the side. So that is the wiring through there. And then the little CAN bus ballast box or communication box. There was a factory thread T25 just on the side here. And then all I've done is use the hole for that to secure down. And then I've just put a self tapper in on the left. So that's nice and tidy. That can't move about. So that is the front day running lights all done for now. So I don't actually mind that gloss black. It doesn't look horrific, but I think it would look a little bit better body colored. So that is going to end today's video right there. So the service is done. This thing should be bulletproof now. In the next one, we will start tackling the interior. As always, smash those buttons for me. Give us a like if you enjoyed this video. Drop a comment below. I will read and reply to them as soon as I can. Like I say, hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. I thoroughly appreciate it. Stay safe. I'll catch you in the next one.